What's going on, y'all? Thanks for checking in the Khaliis Take. You know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell just so you can get the newest and the bonus content first. But hey, let's just go ahead and jump right in. Reggie Jackson speaks on the difference between the Lakers and the Clippers. And, the biggest difference right now that anybody can see is that the Clippers are a better team. And that's just fact. I mean, right now, you can say the Lakers have more superstar power. The Lakers have more of the bright lights, the Hollywood roll out the red carpet for them, which they've pretty much always had as a team, as Showtime, which they've always been. But at the same time, that's the past. When you look at the present as of today, the Clippers have 4 victories over the Lakers, and the Lakers have none over them. As a matter of fact, in the last several years, the Clippers have actually dominated the matchup between the Lakers and Clippers. So, I mean, when you think about it in its entirety, the Clippers really are just a better team, especially if you look at it from this season. Now, Reggie Jackson was saying that, the Lakers are the show, they're the city, they're the bright lights, they're all the above, they're Hollywood, is exactly what I was saying. But at the same time, Reggie Jackson says that the Clippers are more the heart of the city. They embody the city more. They embrace the city. They're more of the heartfelt, like the hard-working team in the city, blue-collar, type worker out of the bunch. And, honestly, when you look at it from that standpoint, I would say maybe they are. Because, here in L.A., the Lakers are definitely always the forefront just simply because they've won 17 championships, and really there's nothing to be said about that. And honestly, that's what Ty Lue actually alluded to when they asked him the question, and when they wanted him to answer it. And if you ask me, the Lakers have definitely earned their stripes in regards to being the team of LA overall throughout the totality of the NBA years and, just the NBA seasons and everything, because they won 17 championships. They got the most championships in NBA history besides the Boston Celtics, So, I mean, you got to give them credit there. They're always going to be at the top or the forefront of a lot of people's lists just because of that huge accomplishment. No other team in the NBA besides between them and the Celtics have accomplished that. So, I mean, when you look at that in its entirety, you got to give the Lakers, the upper hand when it comes to that. But, I'm not sure if nobody's ever going to give the Clippers the credit, but the Clippers really have been the blue collar team. They really have been the team that, a lot of people look at as the team that's, trying to make a come up, but a lot of people still don't believe in them. And even though they're a very good team, very talented, the city's really just divided, when it comes to that, it's well, I wouldn't say divided. It's more, it's always going to be looked at as a Laker town. LA is always going to be looked at as Laker town more than, a Clippers town, just because of the Lakers' popularity. And like I said, because of their winning ways throughout the years. But if you look at the team now, the way things are in the present, the better team is actually wearing a blue jersey, is actually wearing a Clippers jersey. That's the better team right now. And there's no other way to look at it. And I don't really try to get into this too much because, as I said before, you got to give the Lakers credit for what they've done throughout the years, but you also can't look at the past. You also can't dwell on that. You have to look at what's now. And what's now, the Clippers are more so what's now, because honestly, between both teams right now, who has the better chance to win a championship? It's more likely, clearly, the Clippers, because even without their 2 superstars, they're still a force. They're still hard to beat. They're still a tough team to knock off every night. And if they make it to the playoffs, which I believe they will, they'll be a tough out for anybody in the first round, with or without Kawhi and PG. That's just the way they're built, and that's just the way Ty Lue has his team thinking, that they can beat anybody, and that confidence goes a long way, and they're building chemistry while they're confident at the same time. And beating the Lakers 4 straight times really gives them the notion that they could beat anybody, and it really gives them that feel and that confidence that they could beat anybody. And that's just the way it is, and that's exactly what the Clippers are feeding off of every single game that they go out there. And even though it's a landslide victory, I would say, between the Clippers, or the Clippers over the Lakers, simply because they beat them 4 straight times this season. It's really a rivalry that's never going to go anywhere. It's really a rivalry that's never going to die, especially as long as the Clippers stay afloat. And with Kawhi and PG being there, it's definitely going to be exciting to see if these two teams ever find a way to get into a playoff matchup in a 7-game series, because it'll really actually make things and put things in perspective even more, pending on whether LeBron is there still. I should say that, because after this season here, who knows whether he'll be there next year? Who knows whether Anthony Davis will be there? Just who knows? Who knows about anything? Nothing is safe in the NBA. No player is safe. Trades happen all the time, so we can't really speak upon that. But as of right now, the Clippers are the better team, and honestly, they got the better chance to actually possibly win a championship if they can get their superstars back and hold the championship and the trophy up for LA rather than the Lakers. So right now the Lakers are looking up to the Clippers, and as they should. The Clippers are the better team. They've beaten them this year. They've beaten them badly, and like I said, they're bragging about it, and they're bragging about it in a good way, not in a negative way. It's just all about bragging rights, and as far as like the greatness of the rivalry. And I think that what Reggie said about the Clippers being the blue collar team, the hard working team, I definitely agree. The Clippers definitely seem more like that, especially with their best player, Kawhi Leonard. He's more of the keep your head down type guy, work hard until you make a come up. And with that mentality that Kawhi Leonard has, I feel like that rubs off on a lot of other players on the team, and that's the way they're looked at. But at the same time, they're actually flourishing in a lot of ways, because when they do get Kawhi and PG back, they're going to be a force, and there's no doubt about it. They're going to be a force, because when you look at this team, if you predict that this team is going to win a championship this year, they get healthy, and or next year, that's not a bad prediction, because when they get their 2 stars back, they're definitely going to be legit. But on top of that, even though they'll have the 2-star players, they got chemistry. They really understand one another. They really like playing for one another, and they really actually are comfortable around each other, and that goes a long way. The Lakers, when you look at them, they're a team with a lot of superstar power, but there's no comfortability, there's no chemistry, there's no camaraderie, there's no cohesiveness in the locker room, which makes them a bad team. It doesn't make them a good team. See, losing to a team like the Houston Rockets in overtime, a team that really doesn't have no talent, I ain't gonna say no talent, they don't have no superstars on the team, you should beat a team like that easily. Because the Clippers just played the Rockets 2 times last week, I believe, and beat them twice. They were down 1 game. The other game, I think they just beat them easily. But this is my point. You've got to find a way to beat the teams you're supposed to beat when you're a really good team. And the Clippers shown they're a really good team. They're not a great team without their superstar, but they're a really good team because they play collectively and they play together. And the fact that they've been a very good defensive team this year, knowing that their offense isn't going to be what it was with Kawhi and PG there, it's really kept them afloat, and it's really kept them as a big surprise in the NBA. They've come back down from 35, 25-point leads several times this season. Doing it one time in a season is one thing, but doing it several times in a season is amazing. So, you got to give them credit there. And just overall throughout this season, they've been a better team. A lot of the teams that the Lakers faced and lost to, the Clippers have beat. You see, so you got to give the Clippers credit in what they've done, and honestly, they're working their way up to being the forefront of the city, LA. At least as far as this year, because they surprised a lot of people, and Lakers Nation, fans definitely are never going to like Clippers fans, and vice versa. We understand that, but at the same time, you got to give credit where credit is due. And as far as Lakers fans, I know they were pissed off when they heard LeBron say that the Clippers are the better team, because they don't like to hear their superstars say that, or any of their players say that, and that's rightfully so. No team wants to hear their superstar or any one of their players on the team say another team is like literally better, because it's just not the way you're supposed to speak, and it's not the way you're supposed to carry yourself and have the attitude, about another team like that, or have that notion about another team like that, especially when you got 3 superstars on your team. But that's the difference. The Clippers don't have superstars on their team. The Lakers do, and they don't know how to utilize them. And that's the difference. And one of the biggest differences between the two teams, if you ask me, probably the biggest difference in my estimation is the coaching. Frank Vogel is a good coach. He's not a bad coach. He's won a championship. He's shown that he's been a good defensive coach throughout his time, especially when he was with Indiana with Paul George, I believe. So, I mean, he's shown that he was a good coach. I mean, no doubt about that. But Ty Lue is more of a player's coach in regards to understanding players from a different perspective. And he's a champion as well. And he has coached a lot of big egos, himself, and he's won championship. He's won a championship as a coach, and he won a championship as a player. And when you have a guy like that who understands players from a perspective of knowing the things that they do, knowing how it is to be in a locker room as a player, knowing what it's like going through the motions of a season, he makes everybody around him seem more comfortable in their own skin and allow them to be themselves and explore and take interest in or partakes in exploring with his lineups and doing things like that, throwing different surprises in and out the lineups, because that's what he flourishes at. And really, he sticks to his own regimen. He's true to himself. And I feel like players relate to Ty Lue much more just because of how he is and how he treats them and how he gives them the freedom of being themselves while they're on the court, but understand what it means to execute the plan when your number is called upon. And that's the biggest difference between the Lakers and the Clippers. The coaching. One coach understands the players better, and one coach gets to his players and press the right buttons on his players better to get the max out of them, while the other coach is really stern about trying to get the players to see his vision and his way, and only his way, and it doesn't fit for everybody. And he doesn't know how to implement it to everybody on that team that has full of superstars on there. Because think about it like this. Sometimes a team can have too much superstar power on it. And a lot of people don't ever mention that or say that, but it's very possible because egos become an issue in a locker room. Think about it. The Lakers got 3 top 75 players on their roster, and arguably they could have 4 if Dwight Howard would have got into the top 75, which I think he had a good case for getting in there. He was very dominant at one time. But this is what I'm saying. You got those type of egos in that locker room, and you got LeBron James in your locker room, who is a big egotistical guy, big drama queen, and he's probably the biggest crybaby, I think, in the NBA ever, if you ask me. And when the team is not doing right, he always wants to quickly make a trade or make things different, or it's just to me, he's always, I just never been a big fan of LeBron James. Always respected his game, but never been a big fan. But when you have players like that in the locker room, sometimes it deteriorates the value of the locker room, the value of the team, and how the chemistry is going to go, because too many male egos and nobody really wants to take a back seat. And when you have that in the locker room, it destroys everything as far as like winning, success, and all those type things. And that's the one thing the Clippers don't have in their locker room. They have guys with big egos, but they have a coach that knows how to manage it. They have a coach that knows how to tone it down a little bit and keep everybody even keeled. And even on top of that, when I say even keeled, their best player, Kawhi Leonard, is even keeled. He already has that mentality. He's not a big rah-rah type guy. He lets his game do the talking more than his mouth. And that's the reason why he's respected. That's the reason why Ty Lue is respected. And that's the reason why, that locker room respects everybody in there, because they go out there and they play on the grind. They don't go out there playing like they rolling out the red carpet, and everybody deserves to bow at their feet. And that's the way the Lakers are more or less looked at. And that's the way they kind of come off to a lot of people. Like they're just, better than everybody else. And they're the Lakers and they're the Lake Show and they're this, they're that, because they got all these superstar players on there. And a lot of times that type of, aroma, or should I say, a lot of times that type of aura, I should say, it could rub a lot of other players in the locker room the wrong way. And I feel like Russell Westbrook, the way he plays, his turnovers, how he is as a player, just on the court, it really doesn't vibe well with a lot of other players, because he's trying to be his superstar he wants to be. And he's trying to, it's like at times he's trying to get his stats but he's also trying to help the Lakers win, but it's just not good enough. And everybody in the locker room is getting tired of his ways and the way he comes off in his post game. Because when you listen to Russell Westbrook, it seems like he's all about stats. Oh, well, I could have played my hardest. I played my hardest tonight. We did what we were supposed to do. We didn't win. Oh, basketball is just a game. He comes off like, well, he has a nevertheless type attitude. And see, those type of attitudes from your superstar players, it doesn't sit well on the role players. It's like, and that's what I'm saying, when you have players like that in the locker room that kind of have a passive attitude about the game, it really, really hurts the chemistry of a team and how they're striving to be the best they can be. You never hear nobody in the Clippers locker room talk about, oh, it's just a game. We lost one tonight. We'll come back tomorrow. Oh, it's just this. Like, you never hear a Clippers player have a passive attitude or a nevertheless type attitude like that. They're really serious about what they do. They really want to win. They really want to be successful, and they really have the grinder mentality. And I think that's exactly what Reggie Jackson was trying to implement. When you have more of that blue collar grinder mentality, a lot of people respect that, because it's like 99% of the people in the world are what? Or should I say maybe not 99% of the people in the world, a big percentage of the world are blue collar workers. A big percentage of the world goes to work every day, 9 to 5, put their head down, work as hard as they can, make ends meet to support their family and do what they got to do, and go to work every day and smile about it, even though they might not be in the best situation, but they make the best of it. And that's what the Clippers remind you of. More of a blue collar worker type team, put their head down, make the best of the situation and smile about it and keep going. And that's exactly what the Clippers are doing. They don't have the best situation in the world. They don't have Kawhi Leonard. They don't have PG, but they're doing their best. They're smiling about it, keeping their spirits high, hoping that they'll come back, but they're winning in the process, and they're not complaining about it. And that's exactly what a lot of people respect about the Clippers. They are a hard-nosed team, and they're not complaining. On the flip side, the Lakers are doing a lot of complaining, a lot of finger pointing, and they're not winning, pouting like a little kid, or somebody that's obnoxious, or somebody that's immature, that's not getting their way. And that's exactly what it seems like with LeBron, because it's always been that way with him. And that's what it seems like with Westbrook and the rest of the team, because they're not winning and they're not doing what so-called America or most of the NBA world wants them to do, which is win and be in the NBA Finals, which is very, very far-fetched at this point, because they might not even make the play-in. But you see, when you look at it from that perspective, to me, that's the difference between the Lakers and the Clippers. The Lakers were already put in the NBA Finals like they were the better team and hadn't shown anything yet in the offseason. The Clippers are never put in the NBA Finals or looked at as that team, even though they're the one on the rise making the come up. And even though the last couple years, they've really actually been the better team between both teams anyway, because the matchups that they've had in the last several years, the Clippers have dominated them every time. So I believe, as I've always said, if LeBron and them is still there and Kawhi Leonard and PG is there on the Clippers, I definitely believe the Clippers can beat the Lakers in a 7-game series. Not only because the Clippers have beaten the Lakers in the last couple years, but just the Clippers overall are just more of, they're just the better team. They execute. They really want to win more. It's not like they expect nobody to lay down for them. They go out there and play much harder and understand situational basketball. At least they do more so now than they ever did since they had Kawhi Leonard. And this year, it's starting to show on the other players. Rather than, you don't even see Kawhi Leonard and PG out there, but the other guys are starting to play that way. The other guys are starting to have that mentality. And when you build that type of chemistry in the locker room where everybody's on one accord, it makes you a hard team to beat, and it makes the other team look vulnerable in regards to the Lakers, because they're expecting to win a championship, where the Clippers definitely have the desire to win a championship. But hey, that's my take on everything. You leave any comments in the comment section as always, and hey, Khaliis out.